Today we are talking about things to avoid when financing your car.
You want to be able to live comfortably, enjoy your vehicle.
You may be very surprised when you get probably to the fifth dealership and you get declined.
The validation of income and customer is quite advanced in 2025.
So it will be picked up essentially.
100%.
Gen
are
Zs
looking
are
better.
talking about credit scores. I was surprised when one said to you, my credit score is not right. And I was like, wow.
Welcome to WTF, WesBank Talks Finance, the podcast that turns WTF moments into knowledge that you can use to make informed financial decisions. Subscribe to get notifications when we release new episodes. Hi, welcome to another episode of WesBank Talks Finance. My name is Lebogang Khawaketse, and today we are talking about things to avoid when financing your car. I'm joined by Mashia Mayaba, who is the Vice President of Automotive Sales at TransUnion, as well as Keaton Naidu, who is the National Manager for Validations and Refinance at WesBank. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you very much, Lebo.
Today, the discussion is really around things to look out for, things to avoid, the don'ts when financing your car. And I'm going to kick off with, the total cost of ownership. Keaton, I'm going to start with you.
Sure, I think total cost of ownership encompasses the cost to the consumer in the sense of one should be mindful of what it actually costs to get into the vehicle. Things such as maintenance plans, service plans, your fuel, your time could also be considered as a cost in the sense of after-sale service.
Okay.
So one should encompass all of that before the decision is made to jump into that brand new vehicle.
So essentially, that car installment is not all there is to a car.
100%. A lot of us have made that judgment call. We've all purchased vehicles in the sense of thinking about the installment, but it's wise to think about the longevity of the vehicle, specifically if you're going to be using it in the current economic climate to commute to work and back, dropping off kids, that sort of things. The maintenance of the vehicle as well as other costs associated to it, such as, your tires, the upkeep, your fuel, service plans, warranties, that sort of thing needs to be taken into consideration and budgeted for as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we speak a lot on this podcast about doing your research. You've mentioned quite key things there, and I'm going to bring it to you, Marsha. Why is it important that somebody does their research before purchasing a car so that they can, of course, avoid certain mistakes?
So, Lebo, thank you. Keaton has gone into some very real life challenges that consumers face when buying a car. I wish that when I bought a car, my first car in 2007, that we had podcasts like these that really do add value when it comes to talking to a consumer. So one of the research items for me with online and digital would be this podcast. And online, there is so much information. Today, there is a breadth and depth of information that is on the digital space. But I want to say something that Keaton mentioned. When I bought my very first car, the installment and the price was the key decider. And the insurance I could still live with. The service and maintenance plan you're talking about did not come through as additional costs. But where it really hit home is when I hit a pothole. And the impact to the tire was massive. And when I went to a tire fitment center, when they quoted me 5,000 Rand for a tire, that is when I started realizing, oh my word, there's 4 tires and a spare wheel. How am I going to survive this? So from a research perspective, today's day and age, extremely important. What you need to do and understand is that whilst a car is a means of mobility, it is empowering. I think for me, we can only talk to educate yourself, get information. And if you know a Lebo, or if you know a Keaton, or if you know a Marsha, talk to us. We're there to impart the information and the knowledge.
No, absolutely, yeah. And there is the interest, and I just want us maybe to touch on the interest component. Why is it important, Keaton, that you are aware of the type of interest that you're getting into? when you purchase your car? What's the impact of an installment on that equation?
Well, when you purchasing your vehicle, come time to review the contract, which every person should be doing, it would be wise to look at the interest portion as well, because that is essentially part and parcel of the installment. And you get two different types of interest elements to the contract, which is a fixed rate and a linked rate. Now, depending on what happens in the economy in South Africa, one could either see an impact negatively or positively within their interest. If you look at the pros and cons with regards to the fixed and linked rates, a fixed rate would give you peace of mind inherently if the interest rate or the lending rate or repo rate has to really skyrocket out of control. However, should the rate de-escalate or come down, you wouldn't reap the benefits of that if you were to fix your rate. So, like Marsha said, one of the things that we should be doing as consumers is our homework, in the sense of understanding what does the economic climate look like in the next few years. What have we been through and where are we heading in terms of interest, in order for you to plan out your vehicle and asset finance journey.
Awesome. So fixed interest rate stays the same. So with the linked rate, if the South African Reserve Bank increases it, it will increase your installment, yes?
100%.
Yes.
And if it decreases it,
It'll go
it
down.
will go down.
It will go down. That's correct.
Yeah, thanks for that distinction in terms of the interest rates, the different types of interest rates. Now, affordability, and I'm going to switch it to you, Marsha.
Lebo, you took the words right out of my mouth. Listening to Keaton talking about the fluctuations of linked relative to the stability of fixed. Affordability. I mean, you can take an outward look of what the economy looks like, the interest rates, what the South African Reserve Bank is doing. But you are best known when you look inward in terms of yourself and your affordability and what the next 2 years or 3 years look like. So I would say take a step back, consider the whole pie and say, okay, I would want a premium vehicle. However, I can afford it. I mean, I can pay for it, right? But it will really extend me. Or I can afford a vehicle within a lower price range. I'll be able to afford it. I'll be able to put fuel in, tire costs, anything that is related to the total cost of ownership. And I'll still have exposable income. So whilst it's exciting, be realistic, buy your car that you can afford, because affordability currently, to Keaton's point, we are living in tough economic times. So dream for the car, you will get it, but buy the car that you know will give you I don't want to use the word comfortable, but a life where you're not going to get stressed.
For sure.
And put yourself at risk.
Unnecessarily.
When you can.
So when you hit that pothole, you must have a buffer.
You know, you must hit the pothole. It's going to be very painful, but you know you can go in, and when they say 5,000 Rand, it's painful, but you don't have to stress and go for a loan and just really overextend and complicate your credit as well.
Interesting. I'm just intrigued at what car it was that you owned, where the tire cost 5,000 Rand each in 2008.
I'm a dreamer, and I fell for the trap, and I definitely was in trouble and overextended myself. So I'm talking from experience.
Yeah. Income and expenses, Keaton, you know, I know that part of the research process or part of the application process, when customers apply, there's an income and expenses question that gets put towards them.
One of the most crucial aspects of your application process is ensuring that as a consumer, you go through your bank statement thoroughly. You indicate what your expenses are, what your income is accurately and effectively, in order to have a smooth transition with not just the processing of your finance, but you also don't want to overextend yourself within that specific period, end up getting finance and falling into a trap in the sense of living hand to mouth on a monthly basis. You know, like Marsha said, you want to be able to live comfortably, enjoy your vehicle, It's one of the most important decisions that you're going to make in your life. So why not make the right one by putting in the right information on your online application, or when you visit your dealership, have a sit down, and if there's criterias that don't meet your needs, you can always negotiate that with the finance or insurance manager, or the banks to a degree.
Why is it important to be as honest as possible when you apply for finance?
I think the honesty part, it's almost like a double-edged sword in the sense of the ease of the application.
Okay.
When you're putting down information that is accurate and that is effectively true, the smoothness of your application is quantifiable in the sense that you can get into your vehicle much quicker. It eases things up in the back office, so majorly in the banking side. The other side of it is that if you overstate it because you want that Bugatti, we're in 2025. So these systems that the banks use to regulate the validation of income and customer is quite advanced in 2025.
So it will be picked up essentially.
100%.
Okay.
And that also has an impact not only to your credit profile, but it also impacts, the brand in the sense of your trustworthiness when you apply at other dealerships or apply at different finance houses. It could be serious implications down the road depending on the nature of it. So it's best to just be open and honest. And I love what Marsha said, have a look and see what your needs are and purchase a vehicle for the right need. Yes.
Okay, I like that. But credit profiling, I think that's an important one. How important is it, in the bigger scheme of things again, to make sure that your credit is intact before you get that car and maintaining it while you've got that car or that asset?
I love that question because I think it's so important. The good news is, when it comes to credit scoring, we are seeing a significant improvement as to how consumers are now actually quite insightful about the importance of credit scores. And that can determine whether you get the car you want now or you actually do not get it. And what we're trying to do, certainly from our angle, is the education, not only at the consumer, but even the service providers. Because when you go to a dealership and to want to buy a car and you're declined, and I've worked in dealerships before, and I'm certainly guilty of this, we are chasing the customers with high credit scores because we want to sell cars. The minute a client is declined, that's where we close the door.
No further
education. So we are now at a point where we're saying, both to consumer and the dealer, if you're declined, ask why. And take the time to ask, how can I improve it? And from a dealer perspective, have those conversations. So our positioning says, you cannot afford a car now because maybe you've got into yourself overextended debt. Maybe you can't buy the car now. Instead of saying no, we say, these are the things you can do, and you may be able to buy this car in 6 months' time.
Okay.
The delinquency rates currently have reduced significantly. So what does it say? Consumers are enlightened. Consumers are getting educated. Credit scoring is becoming very important. When I talk to people, the first thing that they say, but my credit score. And I said, but what are you doing about it? Then there's actually a tangible action plan. So people need to understand that creating a healthy credit score is so important. It can determine what your future looks like in terms of the assets that you want to purchase. Keaton said, buying a car is a significant purchase in this day and age. So let's help you to maintain a healthy credit score. But I'm very excited. I mean, the Gen Zs, you'll be surprised. The Gen Zs.
So things are looking good.
Gen Zs are talking about credit scores. I was surprised when one said to you, my credit score is not right. And I was like, Wow.
So it's becoming some social
Absolutely.
cred.
Your podcasts are working, Lebo. and just to add, some clients will go to dealer A, B, C, D and do finance applications all round. The implication of that, it impacts your credit score. So I think it's important to know that, because when they do that, they think they can get a better deal. Yes, maybe at face value on the car, you may get a better deal. But on the back end, it's actually impacting your credit score.
What is the implication of multiple applications when you are in the inquiry phase?
Sure, Lebo. That is mistake number one, I would say. So if the topic is about the do not do's when you're buying a car, that is one of the glaring ones. So as a consumer, you think you're shopping around for the best deal. And there's nothing wrong with that technically. So you'll go to dealer X and they'll tell you your finance is approved at X, and then you'll go to Y, Z, etc. And in the meantime, what you think you're doing is shopping for the best deal. You can possibly get the best deal from a price point perspective for the vehicle. However, you may be very surprised when you get probably to the fifth dealership and you get declined. And you're thinking to yourself, how has that happened? So if we come back to credit scoring, that application is talking to the credit bureau.
Okay.
So every single inquiry that's taking place, yes, it's going through to the various banks, but it goes to a bureau. And the bureau is picking that up as if you're buying this and you're extending credit. Dealer B, you inquiring again, it goes through. And then the third time, for the fourth time, the algorithm is saying,
Enough.
red flag, not responsible lending, decline.
Sure.
So, and people do it all the time.
That's a tough balance to strike for a consumer. And I mean, very valid point that you're raising, because I don't think most consumers are aware.
Absolutely.
Tough balance to strike between us saying, do your research, go shop around. But then when you get to that application phase, be almost certain and scale that down, if I'm hearing you correctly.
And in this day and age, people actually have got facilities where they can ascertain where they are from a credit scoring perspective and what is likely to happen.
Okay.
So if you've got that information at your disposal, you are able to, when you get that interest rate from a bank A, you probably know that this is the great rate.
Within the right ballpark.
Absolutely. I mean, a friend of mine purchased a car recently, and she did her research, and she went to she had three options, and then negotiated her way through, and then ultimately signed with the one institution. So you are allowed that flexibility, but all I'm saying is that be cautious. If you go to one dealership, and this process takes place, you're probably minimizing the risk. But if you go to various dealerships and you're touching different F&I managers, you're absolutely exposed and at risk. So do not do that.
Okay. F&I managers is finance and insurance
Finance and
managers.
insurance managers could do the bank applications.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lebo.
Oh, good. And you quite rightly also, Masha, spoke about the fact that people have access to their credit report once a year.
Once a year.
So that can also help the process in terms of, giving yourself or providing yourself with information before you take that step. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if your credit score is low, you have got opportunity to improve it over a period of time. And that's why we're there. We say these are the actions you take to improve your credit profile. So you can do it.
It can turn things around.
Of course it can.
Okay. Now, Kitten, I've got my car. I've got that contract. It's got terms and conditions. Right? Why is it important that we are aware of what goes into that contract?
When we're presented with these contracts, we see a lot of jargon, a lot of terminology that typically the banks speak, but the consumers might not be aware of. It's vitally important that when you are reviewing your application, you sit down with the finance and insurance manager and you ask the relevant questions. Sacrifice the time in the present in order to benefit in the future, I would always say, to find out what do the clauses say, specifically where the sections are, from number 1 all the way down to number 20, I believe. One should look at what are the terms and conditions regarding the use of the vehicle. Can I use this to transport people? Can I use this vehicle to, to go off-road? Can I make adjustments, or can I do configure the vehicle in the sense of modify it? I think those are the important questions that you should be asking at the dealership, and making reference of that within the contract, because often what happens is that consumers, and we're all guilty of that, would want to modify their vehicles or change something on that, and you can find that gets complicated within the claims process of either your warranty or your service plan or that sort of thing. So it's wise
so again,
to
it's really more research and asking the right questions, I
100%,
suppose. I mean,
yes.
Masha, earlier on you spoke about, the education that you do is really around both dealers and customers. To
Yes.
say when you do get declined, don't just walk away.
Absolutely.
Ask the why so that you're in a better position to do things differently.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there's so much information out there. We have a vehicle price index that comes out on a quarterly basis. Whilst you are pulling your credit score, have a look at what is on the domains around vehicles, because there's an abundance of information there that talks to consumer behavior. So whilst there is YouTube and, the community now is really social media savvy, is really take the time to read. It's not a full contract. It's not overwhelming. It's got topics, so you don't have to scan through the whole document. I mean, you can just go to the topics that are relevant to you and read up on it. That really empowers you to make the correct decisions.
Now, let's not dismiss the euphoria and the excitement that goes with owning a car or buying a car or being approved. Because I think in most instances, that's what kind of like overrides the logic of sitting down. And I know personally, if I'm buying a car, I just want the car. I don't want to be sitting down with the contract and asking all of these important questions. I want to be on the road as soon as I possibly can. Now, if either of you, and I'm posing this question to either of you,
Okay.
we're in a lift with somebody who is trying to get a car. They're getting off on the next floor. Let's say somebody who is an elderly person, maybe not a Gen Z or somebody who has access to social media, and they asked you the simple question that is the topic of today. What are the things, my child, that I should be avoiding when I'm trying to finance my car? And you literally have the next floor, to tell them these things quickly, not go read your contract, go ask.
Yeah.
How would we simplify it? Quick things, 2 things from either of you. You want to give it a bash, Kitten?
Try and put your feelings aside as much as possible.
Okay.
And budget.
Budget.
That's it.
Okay. So that again goes back to don't overextend yourself.
100%.
Okay. Masha?
I would say do not feel pressurized into buying a car. Not by your emotions, but by the experience that you find on the other end. Do not feel forced to make a decision right there and then. When that happens, that is a very big red flag. And affordability, be realistic. So do not feel pressured, but realistic. Because if you're realistic and you know what you can afford, you're going to have peace of mind. If you overextend yourself, in the short term, it might be good. In the medium term, you're going to feel it. You put yourself at risk. You might get that car repossessed because you can't afford it. Your credit score is going to be impacted. It's going to take you a long time to recover. And your own personal self, you're going to be stressed. Your well-being is not going to be okay. And you're probably going to feel quite disappointed in the way things have turned out.
Well, it doesn't get any clearer than that. Yeah. Thank you. There you have it. Top things to avoid when financing your car. I do think that if you've been a fan or if you've been a subscriber of WesBank Talks Finance, certain key themes have come through. The total cost of ownership, things that you need to do, like your own research when you're buying a car. Do not overextend yourself. So be very true and honest with yourself when it comes to budgeting. What are those expenses? Because if one thing changes, like your grocery expenses go up, it can really make everything fall out of place. So do not make these mistakes. Be mindful of your credit record. Keep it clean before you're getting into that car, as well as during the car, by honoring that installment that you can afford every month. Thank you for watching, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Thanks for listening. We hope that you found it useful. Now go and subscribe to be notified when our next informative episode is available.